A drum sequencer can be used to create a drum track for a song. In this case, I'm going to click the checkbox, and when I start running the drum sequencer, it'll periodically The interface to the drum sequencer consists of a series of checkboxes, and I'm going to create a checkbox that we will call snare 1 because it's going to be the first checkbox in the snare drum sequencer. So I type in snare 1, and now I have a sprite that's named snare 1. I'll add a couple of costumes to the sprite. I'll add a checkbox and a checkbox that's unchecked. That'll allow me to switch back and forth between checked and unchecked. Going to make the drum the box a bit smaller. I can go over to the looks command palette, and I can set the size to say 50%. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that seems like a reasonable checkbox to me. And so now in the script, what I would like to do is say when I am clicked, and this will allow that to happen. When I am clicked, what would we like to happen? Well, one thing we could do is just play a sound, and let's go to our library and look at possible sounds in the sound library. And the finger snap sounds a bit like a click, so let's import that sound. Choose that and import. Now okay, and I'm going to call this, rename it click, because it will be the sound that lets me know whenever I'm clicking on this box. Okay, now let's play that sound. Click. Each time I click the costume, the checkbox makes a clicking sound. Now I can tell whether or not which costume I have. Each costume has a number, and I can also tell that by just clicking the costume number reporter, and it tells me that's costume 1. Let's switch to the unchecked box, and if I go back over here, I can say that that is 2. This will let me tell which of the costumes is currently showing, and I can use an if-then-else statement to switch that back and forth. So I can say something like, if the costume is 1, the number is 1, then I would like to switch to number 2, and vice versa. So I'll say switch to costume. Let's see. I think I need some names for this. So let's call this one on, and this one will be represent our off state. So now go back here and say switch this to, if it's number 1, we'll switch to off, and on the other hand, if it's not 1, we'll switch it back to on. So what this should do is when I click it one time, the checkbox comes on, and when I click it a second time, the checkbox goes off. And now I've constructed the first part of my interface that is going to become my drum sequencer. So in order to have more boxes, I can come over here and I'll just duplicate this snare 1, and I'll call this one snare 2, and put it back up beside snare 1. And if I look at the script for snare 2, it's identical. I'll put something different in snare 2, so now it becomes more obvious as I click back and forth between the two sprites. Each one has its own script, but in this case we want them to be the same because we want them to do the same thing. So by using the duplicate function, we can duplicate this to make as many checkboxes as we want. This creates a checkbox for the interface that we'll be using to construct the drum sequencer.